Hey, it's Dougie from Valto, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you the three different types of Microsoft Power Apps that you can use, as well as a really useful table that breaks down the features of when you should use each of the different Power Apps. But why should you listen to me? So, my name's Dougie Wood, and I'm a Microsoft MVP. I got that accreditation directly from Microsoft for sharing my knowledge with you and the rest of the community. In fact, here's a picture of me talking at the Microsoft head offices in London earlier this year. So the first of the three Power Apps that we're going to be talking about is called Canvas Power Apps. Now, Canvas Power Apps are designed basically from the ground up, and that's why they're called Canvas Power Apps. The interface where you're building them is very much like a PowerPoint, where you've got slides down the kind of left-hand side. In Canvas Power Apps are referred to as pages, and then we can build up the different components of our Power App. Now, the best reason to use a Canvas app is because you're fully in control of building out these applications and the user interface, so you can make it look and feel however you want. In this example here, we've got a leave request system, and you can see we have a navigation bar on the left-hand side, but we could easily have put that on the right-hand side, across the top, across the bottom. We are in full control of where all these buttons sit on the page. You can see we can use these as like selectors, date pickers, drop downs, choice fields, free text boxes, and then we can use this to build out things like a leave request system, expense request system, booking systems, hot desk booking, room booking, so many other things that we could potentially build using this. And they're nice and simple to use on mobile devices, tablets, things like that. Um, and they nicely integrate with things like Power Automate. So when we submit our request, it can then be sent to an approver to approve that particular request. Now, all of this is built using what we call low code, which means that it's all built not using kind of JavaScript or any kind of heavy developer based code. It's using low code, which is basically like Excel formulas. So it's quite easy for people to get started using Canvas Power Apps. Now, I should say the main benefit of Canvas Power Apps, as I say, is that you can completely control the user interface. So we can make this look however we like. We can put our logos and colors and completely customize it how we like. But at the same time, the opposite, the negative, the downside, the main downside of a Canvas Power App is the fact that because you're building it all yourself, you could easily build in a bug into the system. So let's say, for example, we've built this navigation bar, but maybe we've forgotten to include the clickable link on this about page, or maybe we've linked it to the wrong page, for example. So we've built a bug into that system because we've had to build it up from scratch ourselves. The second type of Power App is referred to as a model driven Power App. Now, the reason why it's called a model driven is because it's all based around the data, around the model of the data. In fact, actually, when it comes to building a model driven Power App, 90% of the process of the project is actually just building out the tables and the relationships between the different fields in those different tables. And that's most of what you're doing when you're building a model driven app. It's only the last kind of 10% of the build of a model driven Power App is actually creating the interface. The reason being is the interface is very rigid in terms of we don't have a lot of control over. We can change the colors, but we have to use these kind of plugins that we can't really control. We can't add a lot of buttons and things like that. We can add like and configure fields, so we can add our own kind of like fields to forms and surveys and questionnaires and things like that. We can add charts. We can add in like tables and things like that. But essentially, you can't fully customize the user experience. Now, again, going back to what we were saying before, the main benefit is actually the same as the negative as well. It's just in reverse to Canvas apps in the fact that it's so simple to put together a user interface because you don't have a lot of control. With Canvas apps, you have all the control that you need, but you're more likely to program in a bug by accident. Whereas with model-driven apps, it's exactly the opposite. You don't really have a lot of control over what the user interface looks like. All of the buttons, all of the navigation bars, everything like that is built and given to you. So you can't just go and say, "Oh, I'm going to put the navigation on the right-hand side rather than left-hand side," or "I'm going to put it at the top of the bottom." You can't do that. It is what it is at the end of the day with the navigation bars and the layouts instead of model driven apps. But that's the negative. The positive is you're not going to get like many bugs because you're not building the interface from the ground up. So all of the things that we take kind of uh all the things like creating new button, like having a button that creates something new, a button that deletes something, all these things we kind of um think of as that they're just easy given things. They're not when it comes to Canvas apps. You have to go and build all of those things yourself. Model driven apps, they're all there, and you can take full advantage of them. Then the third type of Power App. Now, technically, this isn't a Power App, but it is a way of building user interfaces. So I put it under the banner of Power Apps because when you're considering how you're going to be interfacing uh, your users to the data that you're collecting, there's those three options. You've got Canvas apps, you've got model-driven apps, and you've got Power Pages. So, what are Power Pages? Sometimes people do refer to them as Power Apps Pages, or previously they were formerly known as portals. They're not called portals anymore, but you might still find online when you're Googling and researching, you might still find that occasionally you come across people that are referring to them as Power Apps portals. So if you do, what they mean is Power Pages. The name changed roughly about a year ago, but there's still a lot of kind of information out there calling them portals. Essentially, these are for building either anonymous or authenticated external facing portals. So, what do I mean by that? I mean they're websites. You can physically access them from Google if you wanted to. You don't have to, but you could have them as a website that someone searches and finds via Google or Bing, for example. What do people use them for? So they're used for things like customer portals, supplier portals, contractors. For example, here, this supplier portal here allows the suppliers of our company to log in, see any documents that we've shared to them. They can upload maybe their quotes or invoices or whatever it is they need to provide to us, and general information about the projects we're working on with them, things like that. And we can interact with them in that way. It's providing that kind of external user interface that they can then access certain information. But there's so many different types of Power Pages that we've created in the past before for customers. We've created things like membership portals. So we worked with a chartered institution who had paid members who needed to access training materials and track their CPD, take surveys and questionnaires, and um, reports their kind of like career progression, as well as maybe some of the preferences about their membership, so what training materials they would like to receive, and what events they would like to attend, and all those different things. So they had the ability to not only have this membership portal, but also it was taking payments. So the payments were all actually provided directly through the Power Pages interface as well. Now, I do say you can have anonymous portals. Now, there's actually two different types. I'm not going to talk about the licenses too much in this. But if you do have any questions about licenses, there is a contact us link in the description below, so you can always get in contact to ask. But there's actually two different types of licenses when it comes to Power Pages. You have anonymous portals, which are actually cheaper, technically. And therefore more like just giving information, like an FAQ portal, a knowledge base. You're giving information to people rather than actually having them being able to log in and have a customized user experience based on them logging in and authenticating. The second type is that you have authenticated Power Pages, and you can authenticate either with an email address and password, or you could use your Facebook account, your Twitter account, your Google login. There's loads of different ways you could authenticate, but essentially it boils down to an email address and a password that will be authenticated against the Power Pages portal. So essentially that's what it is. So those are the three different options. And now how do you choose? So what I've done is I put together a bit of a table to help you choose when is the best time to use the different Power Apps. So down the left-hand side, we have the features. Now I realize I'm blocking this a little bit, so I'm just going to have to scoot out the way a little bit as I'm kind of talking. But we have comparing Power Apps. So I wonder if I can block. No, that's not that's not going to work either. But anyway, so I'm going to read them out. But essentially, we've got integrations and connectors. So Canvas apps, model-driven apps, Power Pages, they can all integrate with external systems. So Canvas apps, we can integrate with not only Microsoft 365 related data, but also external data as well. So all three, and most of these connectors are actually delivered by a Power Automate to integrate. say, for example, Power Pages. That example I was talking about, that membership portal, was integrated to a payment system called Stripe, but it was all embedded into the Power Pages. Next, we have custom user interfaces. So as I say, Canvas apps and Power Pages both have the ability to have complete customization over the user interface. However, you don't have that in model-driven apps. You can configure it, but you can't overly customize it. When we say responsive native, so what I mean by responsive native is it means you don't need to be a developer. You can just have it responsive straight out of the box. Canvas apps and Power Pages are not fully responsive out of the box. I know they talk about having these responsive templates and things like that, but if you were to just go and build one straight off the bat, they are not fully responsive natively. And in fact, it takes a lot of work to get them responsive. In fact, whenever we're providing a quote to somebody to build either a Canvas app or a Power Pages to make it fully responsive, you could be doubling or potentially even tripling, depending on the complexity of the app, how much time and effort and money it's going to cost to make it responsive. When it comes to Canvas apps, if you need somebody to be able to use it on a mobile phone, on a tablet, on a desktop, loads of different sizes of devices, often it's cheaper and quicker just to actually duplicate the app multiple times. So you have different versions of the app for different screen sizes, and then just use the different apps. So you have a mobile version and a desktop version of the same app. So I'm just going to scooch over out of the way just a little bit over here, just to read out some more of these ones for you. So responsive developer required. So as I say, you will need a developer to make your Canvas apps and Power Pages properly responsive. Just going to scoot out the way a little bit more over here. Then we have our kind of business process automation. So what do I mean by business process automation? Now, this isn't built into Canvas apps, but it is built into model-driven apps and Power Pages. So what do I mean by business process automation gateways? So say, for example, you have a process like like a sales process where you'd have something that comes from like a meeting to a lead to an opportunity to a sale, right? Those are different gateways that you have for your business process. Now, model-driven apps has what they call a business process flow, which is like across the top and these different gateways. And the reason why you have those different gateways is because you might be capturing different information at different points in time, and you need to make sure that different fields are required. The same goes for Power Pages. You can have that, but you have to build that in for Canvas apps. Complex data models. As I say, Canvas apps is focused about the user interface. It's not focusing on the data model. Whereas model-driven apps and Power Pages both rely on Dataverse as their back end. Dataverse is essentially like an online SQL almost. It's like a SQL in the cloud type thing with all those different relationship tables. And it's much better at storing complex data models. Premium licenses required. The number one reason why most people think of Canvas apps when we talk about Power Apps is because you don't need a premium license. A lot of people are using SharePoint or Excel documents as the data source for their Canvas app. So that's why I think about 80% of Power Apps are Canvas apps, especially for small and medium-sized organizations, whereas enterprise organizations with a bit more money have the premium licenses. And that's because model-driven apps and Power Pages, you can only store the data of those things that are collected inside of Dataverse, which requires the premium license. Full pages and dialogues. So Canvas apps, you struggle to get a lot of information on one page, so you end up with a lot of clicks. Whereas model-driven apps and Power Pages, you have the full control of the page to have scrolling ability. Developer required. Now, technically, you don't need a developer for a Canvas app or model-driven app because there's a lot of easy user interfaces. Whereas with Power Pages, you do need to have a developer. It's essentially a website. You need to understand HTML, JavaScript, and things like that. It's not really a proper end user solution. And then we have external users anonymous. Now, you can bring in guest users into Canvas apps and model-driven apps, but it's quite difficult. If you truly need to interact with external parties, that's when you need to use Power Pages. There's a link in the description to contact us. If you require professional assistance building out your Power Apps, we do offer a free 1-hour consultation with one of our Power Apps experts. They can discuss all of your challenges with you, answer any questions you have, and even showcase similar solutions that we've previously built for similar companies. We will then give you a no obligation quote of how much it would cost to build out your Power Apps. And if that sounds of use to you, click the link in the description below to contact us. It takes you through to a web page where you can fill out a contact form and we'll reach out and book in your free consultation with you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. You can ask any questions in the comments feed below and subscribe for more Power Apps content.